بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. I'm getting feedback. إخوة الإسلام يا عباد الله, I welcome you to another heavyweight dialogue. And as usual, we'll try to cover a topic that is in demand amongst the Muslims today, inshallah ta'ala. But before going into this discussion, and I want to remind the brothers and sisters, first and foremost, to subscribe to the channel. I noticed that a lot of the comments that are being left on the videos are by people who are not subscribed. We encourage you to subscribe to the channel for obvious reasons. And without a doubt, you get notifications and as it relates to the content that's put up on this channel. So I highly encourage you to subscribe to the channel. Likewise, as usual, there'll be a link placed in the live chat area for those that want to enter the discussion and voice their opinion or question and thus forth and so on concerning the topic tonight, inshallah ta'ala. Now, when dealing with this particular subject matter, the subject matter tonight is making polygyny work. Making polygyny work. And when dealing with this particular subject, I want to begin with a slight intro. And I want to begin this introduction starting with the statement of Allah when He says, Wallahu ja'ala lakum min anfusikum azwajan. And Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, He has made for you all, from you all, wives. وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ بَنِينَ وَحَفَدًا. And He has made for you all from your wives children and grandchildren. وَرَزَقَكُم مِّنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ. And He has provided for you all, or He has provided you all with the طَيِّبَات, the good and pure things. أَفَبِالْبَاطِلِ يُؤْمِنُونَ وَبِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ هُمْ يَكْفُرُونَ. So is it falsehood that they believe in, and the blessings of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala they disbelieve, they disregard and have this disbelief for? Shaykh Abdul Rahman ibn Nasir al-Sa'di rahimahullah, he states in his tafsir to the Quran, he states Allah Ta'ala, He mentions his tremendous blessings or His tremendous bounty ala ibadihi, upon His servants. حيث جعل لهم أزواجا ليسكنوا إليها. And this tremendous bounty that He's bestowed upon them is when He made for them wives and they live amongst them. وَجَعَلَ لَهُم مِّنْ أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْلَادًا. And He has made for them, the men, their wives, from their wives, children. And these children are a source of delight for their eyes. And they serve them and help in fulfilling their hawa'ij, their needs. And so they're beneficial to them from varying perspectives, from varying and many perspectives. And He is, He provided them He provided them with good things, good and pure things, from that which is ate and or drink. That from food and drink. When ni'am, الظاهرة التي لا يقدر العباد أن يحصوها. And these blessings, these apparent blessings are that which the servant is incapable of enumerating. Yani, when dealing with this issue of marriage and what's produced from it, there are a multitude of blessings that the servant is incapable of enumerating. And so when looking at the statement of the Sheikh concerning his commentary to this particular ayah, then we should walk away with the understanding that this particular verse is a verse that you really deserve some reflection and some contemplation over as it relates to what it means and or indicates or points to. As this particular verse, we're seeing a glimpse at the wisdom of Allah Ta'ala as it relates to him legislating marriage. And we stated last week that some from amongst the ulama state that the foundation concerning marriage in al-Islam is polygyny. It is polygyny. But at any rate, we're seeing a glimpse at the wisdom of Allah Ta'ala for legislating this act of worship, marriage. And when contemplating over this, then there is no doubt that contemplation as it relates to what is contained in this verse, it repels some of the false and corrupt ideologies that we find in society today, some of the false thoughts that are being propagated in recent times by the people within the society today. Like, for instance, same-sex marriage. Same-sex marriage is something that is promoted within the society, and the reality of a same-sex marriage is that it is a road to self-annihilation. It's a road to self-annihilation, to genocide of a people or all people on the face of the earth if men were to turn their lust to men and all women were to turn their lust to other women. There is no wisdom or the wisdoms that we find from this particular verse that where Allah mentions marriage to a man and woman, you don't find these wisdoms in so-called same-sex marriage. So contemplation over this verse, it annihilates one corrupt idea commonly spread today within this society. Another example that it destroys is the claim that a man, as it relates to a woman, is not a need. A man, as it relates to a woman, is not a need. You can go and ask many women in this society today, is a man a need, or is a man something you could do without? Or to simplify, is a man a need or a privilege? And they'll just say a privilege. And when I say privilege, I mean like something that, okay, you would like to have, but if you don't have it, you don't need it anyway. It can be discarded. They're going to say a privilege and not a need. But when reflecting off of this particular verse, these types of corrupt ideas that are found within the society today, the verse and what it entails and the wisdom behind it, it repels that. And this is why it's important for the believer, man and woman, to reflect off the verses of Allah Ta'ala to better shape our thinking and understanding as we move about in this society where there are so many corrupt ideas and so many corrupt behaviors that are found within the people today. Now, as it relates to the last part of this verse, أَفَبِالْبَاطِلِ يُؤْمِنُونَ وَبِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ هُمْ يَكْفُرُونَ. Is it falsehood that they believe in, but the blessings of Allah they disbelieve in? Ibn Kathir, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, he states concerning this portion of the verse, ثم قال تعالى منكرا على من أشرك في عبادة المنعم غيره. He states that the Exalted says in disapproval of those that associate partners in worship with the one who bestows these blessings. أفبالباطل يؤمنون يعني وهم الأنداد والأصنام. And these يعني this falsehood that they believe in, it's the varying objects of worship that they make as partners with Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, that they take as partners with Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And then he says about the last portion, yani, and the blessings of Allah, they disbelieve, meaning they hide or conceal the blessings of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala upon them, and they attribute these blessings to other than him. So in other words, instead of giving credit to Allah for bestowing something upon them, they'll say, my deity gave me this. My deity did this for me. And thus forth and so on. And this is still happening today amongst many within the society. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, he teaches us, أَفَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِينَ يَتَّخِذُوا إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you not seen he who takes his desires as his Lord? When we look at the atheists, they are mushrikun, and as it relates to this particular verse, they say they don't believe in anything and they don't worship anything. But in reality, they're taking their opinion as lords, as their deities. So you'll find the atheists in this society today attributing the blessings of Allah to other than Allah. So now in the creation of human beings, they attribute that to evolution, for instance. And the creation of the heavens and the earth, they attribute that to a big bang, or how they explain it is nothing more than a cosmic coincidence, an accident, or something to this effect. But none of that is being given, the credit is being given back to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And likewise, when looking at this legislation of marriage and the wisdoms behind it, and thus forth and so on, specifically speaking, then the credit is given back to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala and not to anyone else. And so the reality is, as it relates to the Muslim, is that all we have to do is follow the text that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala intends, and that wisdom in which Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala legislated this particular thing and all things will come to fruition if it is implemented the way that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala intends. And it gives, when looking at and understanding this, and it gives us a better outlook on the statement of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala when he says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu istajibu lillahi wa lirrasuli idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. O you who believe, answer the call to Allah and his messenger when they invite you to that which will give you life. Because al-Islam, the legislation of al-Islam, whatever subject it may be, it is that which brings life to the individual. It brings life to the family structure. It brings life to the society. It's a means of rectification for the individual, a means of rectification for the family structure, and a means of rectification for the society in general. And so we're going to discuss making polygyny work. And this is going to be based off, our discussion is going to be based off the wisdom that is found within the legislation, with the hopes of achieving the blessings, the many blessings that are surrounded around this particular act of worship that has been legislated from the Lord of all that exists, and Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala knows best. And so, in saying that, and I want to begin the discussion tonight with the question to my participants, and that being, what are the common mistakes that men make? And we're dealing with men right now. And actually, this is a two-part question. What are the common mistakes that men make when attempting to initiate polygyny? That's one part. And then the second part, what are the mistakes that men make, yani, trying to maintain polygyny? And so the second part, I want to sit that to the side and deal with the initiation of polygyny right now. What are the mistakes that men make as it relates to initiation of polygyny? And keep in mind, men, not women, because we'll get to women, inshallah. So I want to pass the mic to my brother Ismail Abu Abdullah, and perhaps he can give us some insights on this particular matter. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala knows best. Tafaddali ya akhi.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fih, kama yuhibbu rabbuna ta'ala wa yarda. Wa salawatullahi wa salamuhu ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tamassaka bi sunnatihi ila yawm ad-din wa ba'd. To answer your question, after we praise Allah, thank Allah for another opportunity, and thank all those who participated and will continue to participate and support this program. Thank our host and our co-panelist. I think probably to try to keep it organized and structured, let's try to start from the beginning, like the first mistake that men make. I think the first mistake, common mistake that men make as it relates to plural marriage is, and this is before, because I started to say the way that men tell their wives, or not tell their wives, if they tell them or they don't tell them. But before we get to that, I think it's the mentality, right? I think it's the way, like our mind frame, you know what I mean? What it is that we expect. I think that a lot of times our expectancy and our anticipations are, I'm not going to say not realistic, but they may not necessarily be appropriate for our situations. Like, let's say, for example, I think that men go wrong, because I don't think there's any one way to answer this, but I think that men go wrong in that the concept of plural marriage, first of all, look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we look at the kind of man that he was, right? He was a real man. He was an actual man, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about him, قَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. There has come for you in the mission of Allah the most excellent role model. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised him and let him know that he made him upon what? Ala khuluqin adhim, tremendous character. And the ulama, we know that the ulama, when they talk about character, the first thing that they emphasize is that the slave has to perfect his character and how he is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think that men, sometimes we concentrate on, maybe making money, which is a tremendous part of it, extremely essential. We discussed it before. Sometimes we may prioritize maybe getting in shape, working out prior to, or something, so on and so forth. But I think that the number one thing that we fail at realizing that, in order to be a good husband with one woman, you have to increase in the ibadah, right? You have to strive to attain sincerity. You have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for yaqeen and try to put yourself in a situation, chase after those things, research those things, incorporate those things in your life to help cultivate your yaqeen and your certainty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the first thing. I think the first thing is that we fail to realize that in order to maintain one woman, definitely two women, three women, or four women, that your ibadah has to increase, because the level of patience is times two now, right? The level of wisdom is times two. there's no break. When you have more than one wife, there's no break. Brothers think they're gonna go get a wife, or I got 2 women. It's gonna be all this intimacy. I'm gonna just go from girl to house, and I'm gonna just, and I mean that's part of it, but it's a lot. There's never a day off from manhood. Okay, there's no days off from manhood. Maybe if you got one wife, sometimes you can sneak in 5 minutes or 15 minutes away from manhood and have a little boy moment. But when you have more than one wife, there's no time for weakness. There's no time to be a little boy. There's no time to be lazy. You barely can have time to be tired. You understand what I'm trying to say? Having more than one wife is something that you definitely, number one thing, I think the number one thing that many of us perhaps may fail at is we don't realize the level of ibadah that we have to increase in. And I'm not saying that that's a condition. I'm not saying that this should be used as an excuse that women should say, well, you didn't even make the tahajjud. As I saw some weak, spineless individual post on Facebook one time, he said, oh, brothers are quick to get another wife when it comes to making tahajjud or some other thing, making their sunnah prayers or something, they're lackadaisical. That was a statement, in my opinion, of a very weak man to make a statement like that, because taking on more than one wife is just like praying to sunnah after maghrib, or praying, or making the adhkar al-masa or sabah. All of these actions are from the sunnah, and whichever of them you have the ability to do, you should indulge in. But when it comes to having more than one wife, I think a fundamental misconception, not even a misconception, I think a fundamental oversight that we often suffer from is that you have to now increase in ibadah. And whatever level of ibadah that you're on with that one wife, and this is just my opinion, from experience, whatever level of ibadah that you were on with that one wife, you're going to have to increase it. You have to increase it, okay? Because the help and the aid and assistance that you need from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you need more now, right? The guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you need more now. The basira, right? The hidayah, everything that you need to make decisions, being political, being patient. Women often are going to display, especially in the beginning, and the jealousy and the emotions are inconsistent. They're going to display emotional behavior, nothing fisk or shuttle. We're not talking about anything like that. We're just talking about emotional behavior that can push them to say or do things that they wouldn't normally do. So your level of patience, understanding, and fear for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be consistent, because if not, you'll blow it. You know what I mean? So I think one of the fundamental and common mistakes that brothers make is that they underestimate how much ibadah, how much sincerity, how much one has to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when embarking upon this task of taking on more than one wife, and how consistent he has to be throughout the duration of that marriage, that plural marriage. Now.
So in your opinion, because although the main theme of what you were saying was increasing in ibadah, but it seemed like from what I can deduce from other things that you said is that a person probably should have a realistic expectation of what to expect when in a marriage. Then.
Yeah, he definitely has to understand. I mean, because at the end of the day, having knowledge of Tawheed, real knowledge of Tawheed, knowledge of what kind of person the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, knowledge of the fundamental aspects of the religion with tafsir. All of these things will aid him. You know what I mean? Because he's going to need these things. Because honestly, I don't even know how to say who's prepared for. I don't even know how you prepare really realistically to have more than one wife. Because first of all, every woman is different, and every brother is different, and people's circumstances are different. You know what I mean? And then the women themselves go through emotional and psychological, domestic changes after you get married. Whether it's the woman that you're already married to, and now another wife comes in, or the 2 women or 3 women that you're already married to, and then another wife comes in. They all go through changes. And now the woman who's coming in, right? She was one way prior, right, to her entering into the marriage, and now and this doesn't mean that anybody's fake with their change. It means that they go through, an emotional change. They may get back. It doesn't mean that they go from bad to good or good to bad. It just means that, they go through some different kinds of things because it's a very emotional experience. You know what I mean? And I don't want to be too long. I want to try to be as systematic as possible, so we don't, because I know there's a bunch of things we need to tackle. Inshallah ta'ala, and I would like for us to get to tackle as many of them as possible. So I think that if we kind of keep, think about it from before we get married to time to talk to our wives about it, to marriage day and so on and so forth. If we can keep that, try to keep it chronological order like that, it'll probably help us organize our thoughts and make our presentations and our discussions a lot more, comprehensible. Inshallah.
Sadiq, I'm pretty sure you have your take on that.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah, nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, man tamassaka bi sunnatihi ila yawm ad-din. Thumma amma ba'd. Alhamdulillah ala ni'mat al-Islam wa sunnah. Praise and thanks belong to Allah for guiding us to Islam and for guiding us to the Sunnah. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to be a part of these tremendously important and vital discussions. May Allah ta'ala reward each and every individual who came out to listen and those who will listen to it in the future. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward our host and our co-panelists with good for taking from their time to try to benefit the Muslims this evening. I want to piggyback off of what our beloved brother Ismail mentioned, and that is as relates to the expectations and the way in which the brothers will look at plural marriage. In order to properly be prepared for it, a person has to know the gravity of the situation. He has to know the gravity of the task, right? And without knowing the gravity of the task at hand, then they will be ill-equipped to adequately embark upon it. And I think the brothers really need to look at the reality of plural marriage and not look at it from a romantic standpoint. In other words, we romanticize plural marriage. I'm going to have more than one wife. I'm going to have more than one household. I'm, double the women or triple the women and like this. And they don't really understand that the benefit in polygyny, yes, the man benefits in polygyny from certain aspects, but the real benefit in polygyny, when a man does it correctly, is for the women. They are the ones who benefit. And the man himself, although he benefits, you find that he becomes an individual who, when he does it right, he is very conscious and he is, for lack of a better term, in the service of his family, right? So this brother is not going to be that brother that's going to hang around and lollygag in the masjid and just talk for hours and hours and hours after Isha, after the Salah, because he knows he has to go home and he has to take care of the needs of his family, whether that is getting them food, whether that is getting this one Pampers, whether that is, whatever the case is, right? He has to go home and he has to help. He has to go home and he has to make things easier for his wife. So in order to properly prepare, an individual has to go into it understanding this, and they have to go into it knowing themselves. They have to look at themselves and evaluate and assess who they are and what they can and can't handle. So there may be a brother who maybe he can handle 2 women, but he can't handle 3. There may be a brother who can handle 3 women right now, but you're talking about marrying women that you marry them for life. This is the mentality, right? So yes, 3 women, you have that energy right now, but 20 years from now, right? Are you that strong? You understand? To handle those responsibilities and so on and so forth. So you really have to be able to do a true self-evaluation to see what you can and can't handle, who you are as an individual, and then go into it appropriately and not take on more than you can chew. So when we look at, for example, the statement of Ibn Abbas, radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, as relates to the who's the good one, who's the real good man, and so on and so forth. He said, فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ أَكْثَرُهَا نِسَاءً, that verily the best of this ummah are those who have the most women. Those who have the most women. A lot of brothers look at this and they don't understand it properly. What does this mean? The best of them, the more manly of them, and so on and so forth, the best man in this nature. This is from the standpoint because the one who has the more women and he's doing what he's doing properly, this is a real man. This is someone who he doesn't play games. This is a true example of masculinity, that he's taking care of his women emotionally, financially, to the end of it. This is a real man. It takes a real man to be able to deal with 4 different personalities, 4 different mood swings, so on and so forth. It takes a real man with real maturity, with real patience, with real forbearance, so on and so forth. It takes a real man to be able to deal with that. Not everybody can deal with that. And there's a lot of brothers who go into plural marriages thinking that they're men. And in reality, they have yet to become men like the way in which they imagine and how they envision themselves. And it's a reality check for a lot of them. And those who can't cut it, then we know how that ends. Ala kulli hal, one of the biggest mistakes is not adequately assessing the situation, not adequately assessing who they are as individuals. And then there's a lot on this point, right? But I think we really need to tackle, because this is in line with that, right? The individuals who act like wimps and punks and chumps, who want to hide it from their women or lie about it, you know what I mean? And take these cowardly ways in doing it. That's also a very, very, very big problem. But I just want to throw that out there, get the brother's take on that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to push back a little bit on something you said, Sadiq, and it's not necessarily a problem with what was said, but the overall meaning of what was said, but a problem with, if I could even call it a problem, the usage of the term not being real men. And I'll explain what I mean as it pertains to the aspect of everything you said before. The part where you were talking about people being wimps for not telling their wives if they're about to, and I'm assuming you meant by that if they're about to do something. One of the things that I've talked to a lot of African brothers concerning polygyny, right? Because we know that in Africa, in certain countries, polygyny is commonplace. It's normal. We had a lot of Gambians in LA. It's normal there. They would give the brothers a lot of advice concerning polygyny. And they wouldn't necessarily say that a person's not a real man if he couldn't handle a polygyny. They use a different term. In fact, there was another African brother that said something similar. They said that they wouldn't put anybody in a position of leadership unless they had more than one wife and their marriage, that polygynous marriage, was successful. And the reason why they said that is because they said everybody doesn't have the trait of leader where they can govern over multiple people. And so if you have a man that has more than one wife and it's been a successful marriage for X amount of years, 2 or 3 or however many wives that the individual may have, and they said, and this person is exemplifying traits of leadership. And they feel more confident with putting somebody like that in the position of leadership as opposed to somebody who's monogamous. And so that's where I would say, I think myself personally, the better usage of the word would be, they're men, but they may not be leaders, in a sense where they will be governing multiple people, and Allah knows best.
I can see that. I can see that. But what I meant by it is that, and this is again, for lack of a better term and or phrase, is that you'll find a lot of brothers, they misassess their masculinity. In other words, they think they're a lot tougher than what they really are. And then when they go into it, what I mean by, not acting like real men or not, or, it shows them that they're not as tough as they thought they were, are those brothers who will now allow the first wife and her emotional outbursts to dictate what he does and how he acts and so on and so forth. Those who realize that they're not mature enough to really handle the dynamics of the mood swings and of the things they're going to hear and so on and so forth, right? Although, like I said, they want to, pump themselves up, this is what we do, we men, and so on and so forth. When I mean you have to be a real man, I mean you have to be mature, right? And that's maybe a better term. People are not as mature, emotionally mature, as psychologically mature as they think they will be. And even some of the brothers, they underestimate the physical aspects of it. And I don't mean intimacy, although that could be also a misestimation, but I mean just the physical aspects of not going to the same place every day. And I think these are things sometimes brothers don't think about, right? Especially if the wives don't live in the same, don't live that close to one another. So one day you go into this neighborhood, then the next day you go into that neighborhood. People don't think about stuff like that, right? But especially people who get used to, having a routine. You go, you staying in one place all the time and so on and so forth. But that dynamic of almost, like living, you know what I mean? Like you sleeping somewhere different every night, and I think sometimes people don't think about that can take its toll if you don't if you haven't really mentally prepared, for that. And sometimes, it exposes some of the brothers who act real tough and shows them they're not as tough as they thought they will be, because to handle multiple women, you have to be a very mature individual.
Real quick, Ismail. I see that a sister has entered the waiting room. It's 9:01 now, and so whoever wants to enter the discussion, you can enter the waiting room now, but we won't start letting people into the discussion until 9:40. So you can enter the waiting room now, no problem. Whoever enters the waiting room, I see you. And then when we start letting in guests, it'll be on a first come, first served basis. So Sister Alima, I see you in the waiting room now. Whoever comes in after you, when we enter the guests into the discussion, you'll be first up to bat, inshallah. But like I said, it's 9:02 now, and we'll start letting people into the discussion around 9:40, inshallah. Inshallah. Now, tafadali ya Ismail.
Naam, barakallahu feek. I just want to add on to something that Sadiq said, as it relates to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the statement of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, right? That the best of this ummah was the one who has the most wives, or is the one who has the most wives. We know that the person who had the most wives, at the top of that statement is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all right? Because he actually had the most wives. And the more we follow him and the more we emulate him, the easier plural marriage will be. Now, one thing is for sure, and this is something that the sisters have to understand and the brothers have to understand. And, I learned this from my family, okay? When a man is going to take on another wife, now it's real easy for us to allow our masculinity, which I don't believe is a such thing as toxic masculinity. I think that was something that's part of the plot to emasculate men. Okay. I believe all masculinity is good. Depends on how you appropriate it. If it causes you to become arrogant or something, then anything that causes arrogance is toxic. The thing itself isn't toxic, but your inability to keep that thing from getting out of control is what's toxic. But sometimes our masculinity, it gets the best of us, and we kind of misunderstand the aspect of manhood, and it's natural because we're still developing and growing, and we think that part of being a man is not allowing our wives to have an influence over us. Now, our wives should not control us, but for your wife to not be able to influence you, that doesn't really say too much about her character. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can see that he was influenced. His wives' advice, being around them and their piety, their righteousness, it had an influence over him. It aided him. It supported him. That's why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that one of the things you should hoard and covet and keep to yourself, one of the things you don't have to pay zakat on per se, as per the hadith. He said, a righteous, believing woman who's going to aid her husband as it relates to his affair in the next life. So a woman like that, she's going to have an influence over you, right? She's going to encourage you when you need to be encouraged. And she's going to give you really sound advice. And I think that sometimes when we get in plural marriage, or when we start thinking about taking plural marriage, unintentionally, because, a lot of times the women, they give us such a hard time about it, right? Either verbally, or you could just tell on their personalities or their demeanors, that we start to become pessimistic. And we don't believe that these women can ever actually be family and treat each other like family. And it's a sad situation that has been the narrative. And again, I'm taking this as advice from my family. You know what I mean? I'm talking with them and getting little pieces of advice from them throughout the years. One of the biggest mistakes that brothers make is to think that a good Muslim woman that fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no desire or is incapable of being a sister to her co-wife. That's a mistake. That's a fallacy. Sometimes it looks like it's impossible. It feels like it's impossible, right? It seems like it's impossible, but it's not. Okay. And this is what Shaitan wants us to do. He wants us to believe, or to start to disbelieve rather, in the possibility of there being harmony. A man will never, in my opinion, he will never, ever, ever have a peaceful lifestyle or peaceful time with more than one wife if the women don't see each other as family. They might not see each other as best friends. They may have their ups and downs, but if they don't see each other as family and acknowledge one another as family and take one another into consideration, like a person takes a family member into consideration, then it's not going to work. And any woman, okay, who is comfortable, and what women have to understand, and we're not talking about the women, but it's impossible for me to bring my point home without mentioning this one thing about women. And as men, we have to cultivate our wives like this. And even prior to marriage, those discussions that we sit down and we have with the girl and her family, or with the girl and her wali, it needs to be crystal clear, whether we're marrying a woman for the first time, we're just getting married, coming off the bench, getting a first wife, or a second, third, or fourth wife. One thing has to be clear, that I have a structure for my family. I'm open to advice. I'm open to criticism. I need your input. But at the end of the day, whatever theme that I set for my family, whatever tone that I set for my family, bi'idhnillahi tabarak wa ta'ala, if you have a problem complying and following the theme that I lay down, so long as it's not a contradiction to the Quran and Sunnah, then you don't belong here. And men have to be brave enough and courageous and manly enough, regardless of how beautiful a girl is, to put that down. Because at the end of the day, if you plan on getting more than one wife, then these women have to understand they can't see that if they think that your priority is not your family, if they think for 1 second that you've allowed yourself to lose track and lose focus of the fact that this whole thing has to function as a family, and that we have to unify, and that everything we're going to do has to be, not everything, but you know what I mean, in general, the overall theme of the family is that we are moving as a unit. If they feel like there's a level of individualism, or that she can have, you and her can go off and live in your own world, and that you and that wife go off and live in your own world. If a woman in her moment of jealousy and, emotional inconsistency, if she feels like there's a window and a crack and somewhere for her to slide that in there, she'll slide that in there. one of the biggest reasons why plural marriage fails is that men go into it misunderstanding and thinking that, okay, this is a new wife, I'm gonna set her up, she's gonna be over there, and this one's gonna be over there. Nah, it don't work like that. No, it doesn't work like that. Everybody's gonna have their private time. People are gonna be alone, but the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they will come visit the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, maybe at Aisha's house, and the co-wife will come visit the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Aisha. Come to her house and visit her. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have his wives together. He didn't play that. And they knew that that's what he stood for. That was a part of him. So you could not love him and you could not accept him as a man unless you accepted that part of him. But because and this goes back to us having to have spine. And I don't expect for brothers to just come out of the womb like that. I don't expect for brothers to walk into plural marriage like that. This is something you have to go through trial and error. That's why when you marry a girl, your first wife go crazy, and the new wife is trying to be patient, and then the first wife is going so crazy that the new wife loses her patience, and by the time your first wife starts to calm down, the new wife is turned up and all of that. You can't divorce nobody. You got to go into it with like, man, after 5 years, this stuff's gonna smooth out. You know what I'm saying? You think you're gonna sit a woman down and be like, look, sit down, hadathana, and they give her a hadith, and she's gonna be like, I never thought about it like that. You ever heard a woman do that? Have any of us ever been in a conversation with a woman and she talking and you like, wait, stop. And Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, and give a hadith. Then after you give her the hadith, she like, now after you put it that way, I'm so excited about going into plural marriage. Ain't nobody. I don't care who you can bring Abu Hurairah if he was here, and he narrated all the hadith he memorized. It's still not going to neutralize them in their moment of emotional inconsistency and emotional disarray, because they're built different. They're built differently. So at the end of the day, when men go into these marriages, your goal has to be, not even your goal, the theme has to be, listen, anything, my family is the most important thing to me, period. So you take on another wife, that woman needs to be able to see that you respect your first wife and you love your wife. And not that she's the second wife. I don't really like to use those terms because shaitan gets in there and plays with it. But the wife that you've been married to prior to, so technically that's your first wife in that sense, the woman that you're already married to. When the woman, if you are interested in another woman, if she has to see clearly that you love, you respect, and you appreciate, right, the wife that you already have. You can't sit down and when you're meeting with the family, start to talk about how unhappy you are or make it look like you're some pity case and that this woman is ready to come in and rescue you and all that kind of nonsense that people do when they're young. You can't do that. You automatically crippled yourself because this woman now, her idea is different. Her idea may have been, I'm going to come and add on and just, play a beautiful position and add to the family. Now she's coming in like, oh, I'm going to save you from a life of misery and a life of boredom. I'm going to come and replace, don't pump that battery in her back. And at the very same time, you have to be man enough to make the wife that's coming in feel like she has a sense of value. You need to motivate her. She needs to still feel like she's bringing something to the table. She shouldn't feel like a third wheel. So this is why we're talking about manhood, because only a man is going to be able to juggle all of these things. Make the wife you already married to. Look at this, how sophisticated this is. You got a woman you already been married to. Now you want to marry another one. You have to be able to convince her that I still love you. You're the most beautiful woman. I'll leave the baddest. I love you. Blah, blah, blah. This is not about me you replacing you. And you have to be able to convince her and keep her feeling confident and secure and comfortable. And at the same time, make the new wife, right, who you training to respect the one that you've already been married to, make her see how much you respect her, how much you love her, and at the same time, make her feel like a champion who's coming in, with swinging. You know what I'm saying? All of those emotions. This is why I said there's never a break. Whatever break you take from manhood now with one wife, the second you marry that second wife, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of consistency. There is never, ever a day off from your
Let me cut in with a question.
Please.
All right. Because that's one of the things that some of the Gambian brothers used to say back in LA too. They would say that if you're a person that plans on going into polygyny and you're not married, they would say, don't get married to your first wife until your finances are right to be able to marry two wives, right? Because they said once you marry your first wife, you don't want to let a year go by except that you're married again. And their rationale behind that was, don't let the first wife get used to being with you alone for too long. Because by the time you take a second wife, if you've been with the first one for, I'm only saying first or second from the perspective of clarity.
Right.
Right? Because I don't like the term, this is my first wife, this is my second wife, neither.
We'll use initial. I'll use initial one.
I think that this is my first wife. I think that's
right. No, yeah.
The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when you look at that hadith, you see, yani, Sauda zawjatu Rasulillah.
Right.
Or Hafsa zawjatu Rasulillah.
Right.
The wife of the Prophet. You know.
That's right.
So, but that's a different subject. Yeah. But anyway, with the Gambian, this particular Gambian brother was saying, do you believe that, because for some of the things that you were just saying, and some of the problems that may occur, you know, you have to juggle feelings and things of this nature. Do you believe that what this Gambian brother's advice could possibly do away with some of that emotional baggage? Say, for instance, you marry a sister, then 6 months into the marriage, you take on another sister, another wife. So although the initial wife was going to have some feelings within 6 months, I don't think it'll be as deep rooted as, for instance, 5 years.
Theoretically, I think that makes sense, but I honestly believe that it depends on the couple, because some people, they get married and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just puts something so incredible between them that they were married for a couple of months and they have a stronger bond emotionally than some people that were married 10 years. So, and then it depends on the woman's mentality. You know, we come from a culture, especially here in the West, people were listening to all of those songs and music, you know what I mean? And whether people want to admit it or not, that stuff has sadly played a major role in how people approach relationships. You know what I'm trying to say? And like Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah was talking about, you know, love and how love gets, it mutates due to music. You know, music causes a mutation in love, and it causes people to become drunk and intoxicated with love, so much so that they make bad decisions, and it compromises their intellect. So if somebody comes in and a woman marries a man and she is so in love with him and he's everything she wanted, and because we've seen it happen in so many different situations, and 6 months into the marriage, because one thing I can tell you, man, is that when it comes to plural marriage, when women's jealousy kick in, right, there's really no right or wrong, doesn't really have a concept anymore with them. If you marry a woman and you marry her and you get another wife 6 months, she's gonna say, "Dad, we just got married. We can't have time alone."
Yeah. But I'm glad you brought that up, because but here's the deal. Though. I'm almost guaranteed I'm almost guaranteed that it probably, regardless of what the circumstance is going to be, right, a woman's going to have something to say. Knows best.
If you wait a few years, she's going to say, "Dad, you know, you could have did this in the beginning. Why you let me get attached to you?" You marry her friend, she's going to say, "You try to marry my friend." If you marry somebody you don't know, she's going to say, "You try to marry a stranger?" Right? It don't make a difference. It's really, but that's the emotional stuff. And that's why I said, men, we have to be ready to weather whatever it is. A brother called me not too long ago and asked me some advice about, you could hear in his voice, and this is a real, tough brother. And you could just hear his spirit was kind of broken. And he was like, "Man, I don't know what to do. He got another wife." He was like, "What am I supposed to do?" And I said, "You can't do anything. You have to just weather it, man. This is part of the process." You know what I mean? It's part of the process. It's going to get better, inshallah. You just have to be patient. If your wife fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, and you know her to be a woman of khayr, don't let all of that stuff that's coming out of her mouth and her behavior, however jealous she is, and the wife that you married after her, trying to get away from the term first and second, right? So the wife who you just recently married, her patience may be running thin with the wife who you initially married, and things start to get, you usually have to weather all of that. There's really no, I don't know any solution to it. Only thing I can tell the brothers is that you have to have your agenda and your the theme and for your marriage. That stuff needs to be laid out. Listen, bottom line is we are a family, and even when a brother takes on another wife, he needs to try to make sure that he takes on the kind of wife. Marry a woman who your wife literally can't have a problem with her character. That's the woman you should look for. You shouldn't look for the woman because the women are going to find something, right? They're going to find something. And again, this is not every woman. Some of the sisters, mashallah, we see like in the case of Salama radiallahu anha, her jealousy wasn't like the jealousy of Aisha. So some of the sisters are excellent with it. They're way more easygoing with it. They have a lot more, they're way more developed, or they're not as bothered by it. Maybe they see the bigger picture. Allah may have raised them in that area. But we're talking about the ones who suffer from this kind of jealousy and they have that kind of disposition, or maybe the husband, he did something previously, like tried to marry a woman and she didn't find out till later and that hurt her, which is a whole nother discussion within itself. We're talking about those women that are really bothered by it, right? If a brother tries to choose a woman, and again, this isn't weak for a brother to say, you know what, we're not saying this is wajib. We're not saying if a brother does this that he's being foolish. We're not saying that if a brother does this, he's in opposition to the sunnah. We're not saying any of that. We're saying that it can be considered a benefit if a brother picks a woman whose personality and character is the kind of personality and character that's conducive and compatible with the theme of his family. If you have a woman who, is very aggressive, and she doesn't really like to sit still, and she wants to go out, she gets bored being home, and all these different kinds of things. But she's a good girl, but she just has to constantly go outside. You need to take her outside every single day. And you and your wife, your current wife, are both homebodies, and you like to just sit around and sit in your garden. You might want to rethink that. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm not saying you can't marry her. I'm saying you might want to rethink that. You know what I mean? You want to marry someone who's going to come in and not really disrupt the flow. They're going to come, they're going to add to what you guys have already been building and try to take it to the next level. All of these things have to be taken into consideration, in my opinion, man. No.
And let's get Sadiq's opinion on the matter.
I see the wisdom in what the brothers from Gambia were saying, and I think that if that works for them in their culture, I mean, I could definitely see how it could work, right? However, like was aforementioned, when it comes to the sisters, they're going to find something to say. Like, you can't win for losing in a lot of cases, as was mentioned. If it's 6 months down the line, the complaint is going to be, why didn't have enough time? Why are you doing it so fast? To the end of it. If it's 16, 26 years down the line, then it's going to be, why you wait so long? I used to being like this. Now you want to get me acclimated to something totally different. It's always going to be something, right? So I think when going into it, and that's one of the things that a person needs to expect, they need to expect to hear some stuff. As Sheikh Saleh Suhaimi, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, he mentioned about this, that if you're going to take a second wife, then you have to be patient. You have to be prepared to hear some things. The women are going to tell you some things, no matter how righteous, they're going to have those emotional moments and they're going to say what they're going to say. And you as a man, you have to be mature enough to just listen to that and don't say anything, let it go, because they're just, having an emotional moment. And it will pass eventually. It will pass. But in the beginning, they're going to say some stuff. In the beginning, they may try to find fault with the sister, regardless of who she is. In the beginning, they may try to find the main excuses why, this is not the time for you to do that, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, there's a lot of dynamics to it. That's one. Another issue is that not everybody is in a situation where they can do that. You know, we come from a whole different society and culture over here. You know, that whole ordeal that we went through here, then, you know, turned us into a whole nother animal, for lack of a better term. So we're a little different than some of our brothers from across the waters. So a brother, he may not be able to wait till he get enough money to take care of two before he get married to one. And also, you know, some sisters, they always looking for excuses. So I don't want any sister to hear, you know, this program and be like, nah, we need to do it like the Gambians. You couldn't do it within 6 months, so it's over. You know, you missed your opportunity. You know what I mean? That thing done expired now. You no longer have an option. Nah. Because that could become a game within itself. Hey, brother, if you marry me, make sure you do it within 6 months. Knowing that he could barely afford you, he ain't gonna be doing 6 months, maybe 6 years, you know, but that's her out. Or I told you I was cool with it as long as you did it within 6 months. And that could become a game within itself. You know what I mean? So no, I think brothers, whether they do it 6 months or, you know, 6 years, whatever the case is, when they go into it, they have to be honest with the women. They have to be honest with themselves. They have to let the sisters know, yes, I plan on taking another wife. When? Allahu A'lam. But I plan on, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala, taking another wife at some point. They have to be clear and open with the sister from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So that
Problem.
that's a big problem. Brothers go into it. No, I'm never going to do it. I'm sorry. Oh, you know, I love you. All I want is one. To the end of it, and then 6 years down the road, you change your mind, right? One advice I would give to young brothers is never say that ever at any stage of the sit down. Never say I'm never going to marry a woman, because you don't know. You don't know, Yani, you know, what tomorrow may bring, right? Because how simple of the case is, you marry a sister, you have an aspiration of having a big family, for example, right? You marry a sister who can't have children. Now, 10 years go by, 15 years go by, you in your 30s, you want a child, you never had a child before. Now what you gonna do? Not gonna marry nobody? You follow what I'm trying to say? And marry another woman is still off the table? No, you may find a brother in that situation saying, you know what? I think I need to get married again, right? Or whatever the case is. A person may reach middle age, and then now their hormones shift. So now their level of desire is more than it was 20 years ago or 10 years ago. So now they're in a situation where they need another wife. So now what are you going to say? I'm not going to take another wife because I told you 15 years ago I never was going to marry no one. Never say anything like that. But be honest, be upfront. Let her know that, yes, I plan on taking another wife, or let her know it's a possibility. At this point, I really don't know. I might not. I might. I don't know. But you know what? We're going to leave that on the table, because Allah Ta'ala made it permissible. So if that's something that has to happen, that's something that's going to happen, inshallah ta'ala. This way, everybody goes into it with the proper expectation. And the sisters have to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they can't play that, well, I changed my mind. You know, I agreed to it back then, but now, you know, I don't want you to do it. Why? Because the reality of it is that some people will agree to something because they don't think you're ever going to really do it anyway. So it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. So the sisters also have to be honest. If this is something that you really want to avoid, then I don't know who you're going to marry. I'm just being real with you. I don't know who you're going to marry, because men marry women, and there's no guarantee you're going to find somebody that's not going to marry nobody else. And that's just the bottom line.
Yeah, because I think that's what it's really coming down to that sisters have to have a realistic understanding of men and recognize that a man, like, it's just like we stated in one of the talks, يعني ولا أعطي واد مليئا من ذهب أحب إليه ثانيا.
No.
If he was given, I mean, the son of Adam was given a valley that was filled with gold, then he would want a second valley. ولا أعطي ثانيا أحب إليه ثالثا. If he was given a second valley full of gold, what will be beloved to him is to have a third.
Exactly.
The Prophet ﷺ said, ما تركت بعدي فتنة أضر على الرجال من النساء. I haven't left a fitna after me more harmful upon the men than the women. The Prophet ﷺ stated, "Ittaqud dunya wattaqun nisa." Fear the dunya and fear the women. فإن أول فتنة بني إسرائيل كانت في النساء.
No,
As the
but
very
see,
first fitna of the descendants of Israel was with the women. So I think that for a woman to go into any marriage, now I'm not saying she don't ask, okay, do you plan on, but it should already be understood. Yeah, nothing affects a man in this dunya. Nothing affects a man in this dunya like a woman does. So they are polygynists. It should already just be understood. Like all these men are
it, it
polygynists.
it should be,
If they
but
have the opportunity.
it's unfortunate. But a lot of the sisters, they don't understand that. They go into it, and again, this is maybe hinting into some of their mistakes prior or going into marriage, is that they go into marriage with some whacked out crazy understanding. It's as if they want, and you hear women, unfortunately, or I've heard women say crazy stuff like this. Like, in other words, I want you to only have eyes for me. What does that mean? That, okay, to you, I'm the manly man. I love women, but every other woman, I'm supposed to look at her like she a treat. What sense does that make? You find what I'm trying to say? It's unrealistic. You want me to desire you as a woman, but don't desire nobody else. I don't think women really understand the ramifications of something like that even taking place. It is not possible. If you like her, then you're going to see beauty in her too, and her. Why? Because that's how human beings are. That's how men are. So to go into it with that type of expectation, it sets the marriage up for divorce, and for divorce basically. And it's the point is, I lost my train of thought. Okay, yeah, here we go. It sets it up for a divorce, and it's due to the romanticized Disney concept, fairy tale concept of what love is. It's just one man, one woman, and then that's it. Forsaking all others and all that type of stuff. We're not Christians, so it doesn't work like that, right? Even with the Christians, that don't work. And that's why more than 50, half of their marriages, I believe it was like 80 some odd percent, the last statistic I saw, they indulge in extramarital affairs, because that does not work. That is not natural, period. Right. And this is something that the women, they have to understand. Don't go into this relationship asking a man to be other than who they are as a man. Don't ask them. Don't even anticipate that that's how it's going to be. But you have to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the men have to be honest with the sisters and let them know this is the way it is. And they have to be manly and let them know, listen, I love you, but I'm going to marry somebody else. And that does not take away from my love for you. It does not take away from the affection I have for you. Marrying someone else is not because of any deficiency or defect in you. Has nothing to do with that. They're totally separate situations and totally separate things. And they have to, the women have to understand this, and the men have to be brave enough to say this. And they have to be able to endure whatever response or rebuttal or whatever they may hear from the woman once that becomes known. And what they should never do is hide it from the woman. Now, what do I mean by that? Because I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I mean by that. What I mean by hide it from the woman, literally, they should not get married in secret and don't tell their wife until whenever, right? That's the very bad. Yeah, that's a very, very big mistake. Yeah. Now, what I would say though is they should tell the woman once there's something worth telling her. You understand? If a man, for whatever reason, let's say, for example, a brother presents his daughter to the brother. If he knows or he feels that I'm not really interested, then that's not nothing that's worth disturbing her over. But if this is something that he feels, you know what, I think I am interested, and he talks with the father or the wakil and so on and so forth, and he figures, you know what, yeah, I think so. I think so on and so forth. Once he knows that there's something worth telling her, then tell her. Other than that, why trouble her? And there's no reason or no need to trouble her. You understand what I'm trying to say?
100%. Let me just add something on that real quick, inshallah ta'ala. because that's actually what I was gonna, because I know we got about 7 more minutes before we start letting people in. And I wanted to mention a few, I wanted to, open up or at least, kind of stir the water up with a few other mistakes. And I was going to mention that same thing. See, I think what happens is because sadly, a lot of brothers have fallen into this at least one time, okay, in their life, whether it be with a woman that they married or a woman that they anticipate or they were sitting down with, and then their wife found out, the woman they turned into like, the NSA, you know what I'm saying? When they know how to get in your phone, they know how to get in your iPad, laptop, I don't know, tap phone.
They got all your passwords.
They got all your passwords, man. I wouldn't be shocked if they figure out a way to make a replica of your skull so they could take it and put it in front of your phone and do the face recognition thing. You know what I mean? They turn it all the way up. When that is he getting another wife thing go up like that, you done. You might as well just come clean. But what I'm saying is, what happens, the reason I don't think brothers really just sit up and say one day, I'm gonna get another wife, I'm not gonna tell my wife. I think that what happens, and this is extremely important, brothers, for the brothers who haven't gone through this yet, most like Allahu Alam, there may come a time in your life when you have this moment. And I'm gonna give you some advice in that moment. When you sit down and you man up and you try to talk to your wife about it, and you say, okay, well, listen, I was thinking about blah, blah, blah. And your wife, she may very well, some of them, you may have a wife who is, developed in that area. And I don't want the sisters to think that we're saying that they're underdeveloped. We're talking about a particular area, okay? Some of us, we can't sit here and fake in front and act like we're all developed the exact same way in all areas. Some of us are more developed in certain areas than others. And there are some women, when it comes to plural marriage, who are more mature and more developed and they handle plural marriage better than other sisters, at least the initial, presentation by the husband. Okay, that's just the reality. Some handle it better than others, regardless if it's due to their due to this one's lack of knowledge versus this one's being knowledgeable in this area, whatever it is, we're of different levels. So for those women who they suffer with that, they struggle with plural marriage, and their struggle is different. You got the women who make statements like, I don't believe in plural marriage. I know it's in the Quran, but I still don't believe in it. As women have said that, one of the sisters said that to me. Her and her husband, she said in front of her husband, I don't know if her husband's trying to get another wife, but she said, I know it's in the Quran, I don't believe in that. Straight like that, standing there with an niqab on and everything, right? She said that her husband was standing right next to her. She said, I don't believe in that. So whether it's, that kind of, shout outness, or it's something just, just regular jealousy, and a woman gets uncomfortable and she cries and she says, why do you have to do that? And so on and so forth. At that moment, if a brother's met with some adversity or complication or some hardship from his wife, some resistance from his wife when he brings up this topic, or even more so when he talks about a specific woman that he wants to marry, what happens is some of the women and the sisters, this is some advice to you guys too, to you ladies too. Your behavior, this is not justifying the men not telling, I do not want the brothers or any of the sisters to misconstrue what I'm saying and think that I'm saying it's okay for a brother to now do anything in secret. That is a mistake. Young people do it. Some of the older brothers do it. It is foolish. It's a mistake. And I don't advise anybody to do that. It causes you for a number of reasons, which we'll discuss another time, inshallah. But at that moment, when you bring it up to your wife and she goes through whatever emotional episode she may go through, you as a man have to just stand strong and weather that storm and say, listen, I understand. Whatever, your wife, whether a hug is going to calm her down, a kiss is going to calm her down, take her in the backyard, go for a walk, whatever's going to calm her down. And you remind her, listen, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam left a legacy of manhood for us. And I cannot allow anyone, I won't even allow myself to come between me and that legacy. Whatever is part of that legacy that I can attain, I'm seeking to attain it. And I need for you as my wife to support me in that. And if she has some iman, which I'm sure our women do, inshallah, it'll resonate. It may take a minute, but you have to stand firm. Because once you start, because when plural marriage is involved, with women not talking about something is a lie. So for example, if you don't tell your wife something, you kept your mouth shut, you lied about it. Even though normally a lie is when you actually open your mouth and say something that's not true. But when it comes to plural marriage and jealousy, silence is kadhib in the nisa, right? Right? Being assumt kadhib. You being quiet is a lie. So if you don't tell her, you're a liar. So I didn't lie about anything. I see you want to talk about it. You're a liar. You're deceitful. You're lying. Many times we hear the brothers going through this with their wives and marriage counseling. We see it. Being quiet put you in that. Does she really believe that you some kadhab? She's just hurt. And she's laundering her emotions and her jealousy inside that incident. Okay. Another problem, and I just want to mention these three things, and then I'm done with shout out to our, but the two more things. Another thing, I think with the brothers is that, of course, we have to research and have to have knowledge and learn more about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in detail, specifically studying how he was with his wife. We have to make sure our libraries are stocked, and we have to dedicate some time to going through those narrations. And for those of us who can read the Arabic language, the explanation of those narrations that talk about the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, specifically as it relates to how he dealt with his wives in moments of jealousy and moments of, emotional distress, how consistent he was and how he handled situations. Even look at the times when he got overwhelmed, right? When his wife jealousy got to the best of him, got to him, and he started to make, it got the best of him, rather I should say. And he made some decisions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually revealed verses to correct and clarify and show him how he needed to man up, show him how he needed to, barakallahu fikum, conduct himself in those instances, right? We have to have research. And another mistake brothers make is that sometimes a lot of times we expect too much from our wives, okay? Just because she's a Muslim woman that fears Allah and she prays and she reads the Quran and she covers properly and she has this beautiful character and she's so good to our children, we cannot overestimate her and think that she's not going to fall when it comes time for her to maintain her, emotional disposition. We can't think that that's going to happen. Regardless of how righteous she is and how much she fears Allah, jealousy opens up. Some of the ulama mentioned that jealousy is the gateway to a woman's insanity. And they said that's why Aisha radiallahu anha, our mother, used to get so angry, because even with all of her knowledge and her piety, she still with her jealousy would get the best of her sometime. And the last thing I want to say, inshallah.
Well, one second, Ismail. Sister Alima, you're in the discussion now, and I've sent a request for you to unmute yourself. I don't know if you're on a cell phone. I know that we've had problems in the past with people trying to come into the discussion using a cell phone. They wouldn't know how to unmute themselves and thus forth and so on. So, but you're in the discussion now. You just need to unmute yourself.
Lastly, my advice to the brothers is that one of the common mistakes we make is that we give up, right? We give up. And that's why you'll find the brother get married and then he'll take on another wife. And then, after a couple of months into the marriage, he divorces that wife because it's just too much. We give up. This stuff, sometimes it's nothing you can do. Sometimes it just gets to the point where the woman is tired, you're tired, and you realize that she just doesn't fit and it doesn't work out. Sometimes there are going to be divorces, sadly, but it shouldn't be because you gave up. It should be because you fought tooth and nail to hold your family together. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed that this part of your family, I don't
mean to cut you. Your point is understood, though. I want to get these guests in. So, sister, you're unmuted. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I didn't really want to talk. I thought this room was for us to come in just to have a different way where we're not looking at you guys. So I was confused.
No. If you just want to view the discussion, you just stick to the YouTube.
Okay, all right.
This is for people that want to add to the conversation.
Oh, like Q&A. Okay, class. Jazakallah khairan.
Not necessarily just Q&A, but if you had a difference of opinion on something you heard and you wanted to give your view, or you wanted clarity on something that was said, and thus forth and so on, and this would be the opportunity. Now, since you are a sister and we have a sister on, we have had sisters feel like the sister's point of view hasn't been presented. There was a comment that was left in last week's discussion, I believe, where a sister felt like it was a male point of view instead of a sister's point of view. My thing is, if the sisters don't come in and express how they feel, then most likely their point of view won't be heard. So if you do have something that's on your mind before you clock out, if you do have something that's on your mind and you think that something needs to be said, and we from a woman's perspective that we may want to contemplate on and even discuss, and I would suggest you say it before you roll out, inshallah.
I don't really have anything to say. I just think every situation is different, has its own sensitivity. I don't know. Like, I will try to like get this out so more sisters could come in, because right now I'm on the cell phone with one of my sisters and she wanted to join, so but I had to do something, so inshallah the next time she'll do it and I'll put her onto the video. So it just depends on every situation. I don't really have anything to say. We just gotta fear Allah, so I don't know.
Okay, that best sister.
All right, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Okay, I'm letting in our brother Umar. And I think his audio may be syncing.
Situation. I don't really have anything to say.
I'm still.
Turn your YouTube down, brother.
Hold on. Hold on.
Okay, I'm letting in our brother Umar.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
What do you have for us?
I'm laughing, not I'm laughing because we spoke earlier this week, and then Sadiq hit on some points about the 6 months, and when the 6 months come, it's going to be something else. Then the year comes, it's going to be, no, it's not time yet. Then when you do it, it's always going to be something. For the most, I'm sure there may be some women out there that illa rahimahullah, but for the most part, it's always going to be something. If it's not, because I've heard things like you didn't give a marriage a chance. You did it too soon. Now this is after them being told, don't marry the brother unless you are compatible or you're down with polygyny. This after being told that. So that was done up front. And then, once it happens, it's like, oh, you don't love me. It's like, what are you talking about? He was told that, the brother's going to take another wife. You didn't give the marriage a chance to develop and this, that, and the other. So it's like, and I'm talking about real life stuff. You didn't get a marriage a chance to develop before you took on another wife. Or there's a constant a thing about you got to marry somebody younger than me. You can't marry somebody who can have kids, and all these different prerequisites that's put on the brother before he takes another wife. And then if it doesn't work out, oh, there's something wrong with me because you got married again and this, that, and the other, just constant complaining. A brother could be married to this woman for 10, 15 years. She's still talking about the first time he took a wife. She's still upset she's still upset over that. So it's just like, unfortunately, of course that doesn't happen in every situation. On the outside looking in, and we never know what happens inside people's homes, but on the outside looking in, you do see some examples where it looks successful. But I mean, everybody has their ups and downs and stuff like that. But you can only control what you can control. If Allah bless you with enough money to take care of 1, 2, 3 women, that's all you can control. And of course, you control your time. Don't be a brother who spends a week with this wife and leave the other 2 out to drive for, whatever the case may be. And the women can't use giving up their time as a weapon either. They like to do that. I'm upset with you, so I'm giving up my nights. That becomes a weapon. So it's a lot of different angles that people have to be mature. And like I said last week, people got to be honest with themselves. You really, everybody has to. There's no ownership in Islam. Like, oh, you're my man. So I mean, because inshallah, the man has wives in paradise, and every time there's some nushuz in the house, they making, they may be making dua against you. So that's another thing that the women don't think about. Like this concept. It's a concept that's just a concept. It's not reality, but it's a reality that there's wives in paradise. That if there's nushuz in the house, that they make dua against you. You're only with him for a time until he comes with me. Kidda wa kidda. So it's just these type of things that everybody has to think about, not just the man, but the woman as well. She has to be honest with herself. If she believes that polygyny is something that she cannot deal with and accept, she has to let that be known before she gets married.
Yeah, but see, it's like I was saying earlier, Umar, because if there's a woman that, because at the end of the day, just like women throw in men's face, marriage isn't wajib. And I will have to say the same thing to them. Marriage isn't wajib. You should have the understanding off the bat that all men are polygynous.
Except those who, I don't know, convince themselves that they're not. But it's just a lot of strange conceptual things that are going on today.
You know what it is? This is the reality with the men, okay? And when we listen to the ulama and they talk about women and how we have to view women, I'm telling you, brothers, man, one of the biggest mistakes we make, we have to stop expecting women. And I'm not trying to be insulting to women. And this isn't a mental deficiency or intellectual deficiency. It's just the reality of their disposition. They handle situations. They don't handle situations like how we handle situations. So all of those things that we're talking about, like the way that they, no matter what we do, and we're talking about possibly the majority, right? No matter what we do, no matter what sister it is, on average, if it's 6 months to the marriage, 6 years into the marriage, if you don't love her enough, she's like, oh, you barely learned, you don't even know how to love me. How you gonna get another wife? You're not even really treating me the way I need to be treated. If you treating her too good, oh, you're gonna treat me, you're gonna go treat somebody with this all of this love that you get. It's no way that you're gonna do it and everything gonna be balanced. So we need to my advice to brothers, don't even waste your time trying to convince the women to change that part of themselves. Rather put the energy into yourself and develop yourself to be able to endure that, because you're not going to change it. When you try to change that, you're going to break her and you're going to divorce her. Leave them the way that they are. Anytime I try to get my wife to literally see where I'm coming from, it turned into a problem. I don't do that. It's like, look, if we talking about like aqidah issue or mas'ala, like, yo, this hadith is da'if, let me tell you why, that's a different story. If I'm trying to explain to her why it makes more sense to drive here than this, to fly there or something like that, that's a different story. When we talking about those things where men and women are fundamentally different, when it's not gonna click. I know sometimes you really over articulate and you like, yo, you swear up and down, you reached her on this issue, you explain why one another way, you going in, you like, man, Allah, wallahi, wa faqani. You feel like, man, subhanAllah, this is the best dawah I gave in my life. It's almost like you wish you could record it and let people, it's like, man, this is beneficial, inshallah. And right after all of that, she'd be like this. What? You know what I'm saying? Or she'd say, I don't agree. And you like,
because Ismail,
Yeah.
I'm 53 years old, Hijri, man. I didn't see the whole game. I hate. The other thing is, again, we've been commanded to marry women for four reasons, right?
Right.
And the women should use that same
No,
advice.
no. Just a correction. We weren't commanded to marry women for four reasons.
We were advised to marry a woman for 4 reasons.
No. The hadith states,
Right.
"Tunkihul mar'a bi arba'in," that women are usually married for four reasons.
Okay.
Then when he stated the four reasons, he
said the
stated,
best.
"Fadfar bidhatit din taribat yadah." So he advised us to marry sisters for the reason of deen, but he gave four reasons in general why people are marrying women: for their beauty, for their lineage, and that's what for so on. But out of these reasons, marry for the deen. That's how the hadith is understood.
Naam, jazakumullah khair. But the point that I was trying to make is that from what I've seen, and I've had this conversation with, I think I mentioned it to you a few days ago, that people don't really want religious spouses. And you can test that out by saying, well, I don't go to the movies. I don't have a TV in my house. I don't do this. I don't eat from these type of places, and then you start seeing the faces like, all right, well, shukran, those are the things that turning people off. So just on those small issues like that, and, somebody might say, okay, but then when it's time to get married, like I said, again, people got to be honest with themselves. They don't think they can handle it. Don't enter into a situation where that becomes a fitna for you, and then you arguing over entertainment on board. There's no entertainment going on and things like that. So just going back to what I said before about, and what has been mentioned several times about being honest with one another. But I see the sisters waiting to get in. Well, I'm gonna get off. Inshallah.
Yeah, I see. I'm gonna let one of the sisters in now. Inshallah. Barakallahu fiqh for your comment, Akh.
Later.
Barakallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, so Yahya, I think her audio is syncing now. And then I have two other people in the waiting room, Wazir Muhammad and Hamza Jones. So I'll let Wazir in next because he was before Hamza. Inshallah. Yeah, so anyway, while her audio is syncing, hopefully she's on a laptop instead of a cell phone, because we seem to have problems. Certain people, I don't know if it's a certain type of cell phone that may be the issue, and Allah knows best. But anyway, when dealing with, because some of the things that we're dealing with are dealing with the initiation, a man initiating polygyny. And without a doubt, if on a sit down, like I have to agree with both you brothers, a sister asked that, be straight up. But what I would not advise is a person after marrying a sister every other week. Be ready when I get this other wife. Be ready when I get this other wife. That's a little unnecessary, and Allah knows best. And I'm not saying that any of the brothers said that, but just for the listening audience, for brothers that do that, you just bring in unnecessary arguments in the home. Yahya, looks like you're with us. You're unmuted, correct? Yahya. Yahya, going once, going twice. Let me see here. There isn't even a mute option for her phone. So I'm assuming. Listen, Yahya, I don't know what's going on. You're in the room. I don't know if you can hear me, but if you're speaking, we definitely can't hear you. And if you're sending messages, looks like a message was just sent.
It sounds like is it that she's trying to, I saw the message come on the screen. Maybe she's trying to talk, but she can't.
She didn't make mention of a problem. She just asked a question.
Oh, okay.
So I just moved her from the room, and I'm admitting. Actually, Sudani was before Wazir. Mohammed Sudani has come in and out of the room more than once. I'm hoping it's not for technical problems, but at any rate, brothers and sisters, certain cell phones, if you're using a cell phone, we've had problems in the past with people using cell phones for whatever reason. The laptop is always easier to use. A laptop is always easier to use for, maybe certain cell phones are not compatible and thus forth and so on. Allah knows best. I honestly don't know what the problem is with certain cell phones. I'm not tech savvy, but obviously there seems to be a compatibility issue, and Allah knows best. Okay, so the sister who Yahya, what if one of the reasons for a woman not being inclined towards polygyny is because her husband doesn't keep his prayer or hasn't made deen a priority? The question would be, why were you even married to a man like that? That's the real question. Why would you be married to a man that doesn't even pray? Now, there's a difference of opinion amongst the ulama concerning the salah and for the person that abandons it. I'm assuming that the sister means, but you know what? I'm not going to assume. She could have voiced this when she came in, so I'm not going to assume anything. The point is, why would you even be married to somebody who doesn't take deen serious? We're Muslims. A Muslim, the very meaning of a Muslim or the very meaning of Islam is istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed wa inqiyadu lahu bit-ta'a wa khulusu min al-shirki wa ahlih. To surrender willfully to Allah based off the principles of monotheism, and to willfully comply to him, and to free yourself from polytheism and its people. This is what Islam is, and the Muslim is the one that does that. The Muslim willfully submits to Allah with the principles of Tawheed, and willfully complies to his commands, and abandon shirk and the people that commit shirk. So the very essence of being a Muslim is calling you to prioritize deen. It's calling you to prioritize submission to Allah and willful compliance to his commands and or prohibitions, and thus forth and so on. So if a person's not living his life according to that, why is the sister married to a person like that? That's the question. That's the real question, as far as I'm concerned. Forget him, this man taking on second wives. He's not even practicing deen. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala knows best. I don't know what's up with this person's syncing. They've been syncing for a long time, so I'm assuming they're probably on a device that's not compatible with the program. And Allah knows best. Okay. Let me see if I can exit this chat. Wazir, can you hear me? Okay, he must be using a device that is not compatible as well. Okay, I'm now admitting Hamza Jones into the discussion. And it looks like you're syncing. Let me make this statement. If you guys are using cell phones to enter the discussion, I would suggest you use your laptop because I have two people that I've entered into the discussion, Sudani and now Hamza Jones. And I'm looking at you guys' configuration here, and I don't see any option for your audios. There's no option to unmute you. And for the most part, you've been syncing for quite some time. Now, Hamza, okay, it looks like you've gone through. Can you hear me?
Yes, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now, your voice sounds familiar. Were you on last week?
Nah, you know me, this Hamza from Kansas City. Masjid Anas bin Malik.
Oh, Anas bin Malik. Okay, mashallah. كيف حالك يا أخي?
طيب, alhamdulillah. How's the brother?
I'm good. Barakallahu fiqh. Thanks for asking. You got a question, comment, or difference of opinion?
Just a comment on the marriage. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. First, I want to say, may Allah reward and preserve you brothers for having these discussions. But first, you know, in my opinion, it comes down to knowledge. You know, individuals' understanding of the religion. And then, you know, our brother, because we're talking about, you know, the mistakes the brothers make when it comes to polygamy, is their intentions. Their intentions. If a brother intentions ain't correct, then Allah ain't gonna bless the situation. Now, then us knowing how emotional these sisters can be and they level of jealousy, like the saying go, it ain't what you do, it's how you do it. You know, like one of you brothers mentioned in the beginning, a brother should never tell a sister that he not gonna take on a second wife. You know, but I myself done experienced this. I don't see nothing wrong with this, taking a sister's feelings in consideration. A sister saying, brother, I know you can have multiple wives, but can I have you to myself for a year or two? You know, in my opinion, I don't see nothing wrong with this. You know what I'm saying? A brother, you know, I'm taking the sister's feelings in consideration, you know, having that one on time with her, letting her get used to her husband or whatever the case may be. I don't see nothing wrong if a sister requests this from her brother. That's it, Sheikh.
Barakallahu fiqh.
Jazakallah khair, akhi. Yeah, there's one thing that Hamza said that I really want to draw home is that things are not black and white. There are a certain degree of nuances, and everybody has to look at their situation and assess and judge their situation accordingly based upon its merits, right? So, like, for example, what the Gambian brother suggested, that is very possible that that you can do that and it works. And if that works, alhamdulillah, do that. It's possible, like what Hamza suggested. If a sister asks you, can I have a little bit of time to myself, and the husband is in agreement with that, and everyone, and that works for that situation, and that works, then do it like that. You have to do it in a manner that works best for your situation, taking everything into account, the sensitivities of your wife, you know, everything. We have to take everything into account, and it's not black and white. So that's one thing I want the people to take away, is that it's not black and white. There is nothing that we're saying here that this is the way to do it, and there's no other way to do it but this way. No, you have to do it in the best way possible, given your situation, and you know, given the individuals within that situation. So that's just something I want, you know, everyone to, you know, just really to take into consideration, inshallah ta'ala, and to have in mind, inshallah. But Jazakallah khair, Hamza, that was a very good point. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, I think that was basically all the brother had to say, as he stated himself. That's all he had to say. So I'm gonna remove him.
But that was a good point, though. May Allah reward him.
Sudani, I'm sent a request for you to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself because you're in a discussion. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Can you hear me?
Yes, where are you tuning in from?
Pennsylvania, inshallah.
Philly, I would assume, huh?
No, actually not. Harrisburg.
Okay, not bad. So what do you have for us? Question, comment, concern, differing viewpoint? What do you have for us?
So, you know, as someone who is in polygyny, you know, there is a great deal of benefit that women may not understand until they're in the situation, and the fact that you know, initially there is you know, there's no denying that the emotions carry you, but what I have found, you know, in my own experiences with dealing with it, that you know, the brothers, you know, the husbands need to and the brothers alluded to this as well, to, you know, allow or understand that our processing is not equal to us wanting to disbelieve in Allah. It is not ever that serious. You know, but what you know, if you hear how our reactions to you know, our husbands getting into, you know, to under the zawjat, is that we, you know, that it's a failing in our iman when we have our reservations about things. And sometimes it really does boil down to, have we established, you know, a good foundation in our marriages? The husband may feel so and the wife does not. And a lot of it, you know, comes down to a lack of communication. But you know, you know, sometimes you know, as a sister who listens to some of these conversations about you know, polygyny, and the fact that, you know, sometimes it feels as though it seems to me that the brothers feel as though no matter what you do, you cannot win. Whereas it's not really the case, that a situation where it's something that you need to win. You know, we are aware of the fact that, you know, that polygyny has been something permitted by Allah. It's in the Quran. It's in the first 4 ayat of Surah An-Nisa. We are aware of the fact that this is something that, you know, that is permitted in our religion. But a lot of times what tends to happen is that our you know, a lot of it is turned off because it tends to be browbeaten upon us. But there's a lot that can be achieved when the women, you know, when sisters sit and understand that, you know, there may be some latent benefits to polygyny that you don't really understand until you get there. And, you know, for me, for instance, one of the things that happened was a nearness to Allah. And you know, really trying to sit and get a hold on these emotions that I know that, you know, we have and women tend to have, but, you know, not to, you know, get too far off the rails if that's something that you really want to do. And like the brother Ismail said, was that, you know, you do need to think of your co-wife as your family member. You know, understanding that, you know, what may hurt you at one point can hurt her. And, you know, practice a lot of empathy in terms of how you know, situations can, you know, affect them, and how, you know, you would you know, feel if it was, if the tables were, you know, if the you know, if it was in your situation. But you know, I think that you know, it is really beneficial to give the real information in terms of how to, you know, make polygyny something you know, more accepted and not feared. You know, in the ummah, and it starts with, you know, understanding that you know, the feelings and the emotions are real, and there's not much that you can really do about it. You know, with the exception of, you know, controlling your own contribution to it, and having mercy and a lot of forgiveness for one another.
Now, sister, so from a standpoint of clarity, were are you a sister who was married to a brother, and then he brought in another sister to the situation,
Mhm.
or? Mhm.
Yeah, I was the initial wife.
Okay, okay. Because I think one of the things that I think happens when dealing with when a lot of times with brothers look at polygyny is that I think that this is not just for brothers but for sisters as well. That there's certain types of, for lack of better expression, anxieties that both women may be feeling. Um, or I don't want to use the word anxiety, but I'll just say that there may be some emotions that both the incoming wife feels and the wife that was initially there are feeling as well. Uh, you know, to the situation, especially if it's new to all of them. I know Ismail could probably really speak to this because my understanding the brother is a polygynist. You know, so he could probably speak to he probably speak to this better than I can. But is it, when it comes to women, do women necessarily put themselves in the shoes of the other woman and what she could be feeling, and how it could, you know, the situation could affect her to better to better come to terms with their own feelings?
Man,
If that question makes sense.
Wait, before we do that, I don't want to what you call it. While we got the sister, I don't want to hold it too long, but you know, because we want to try to put some things out there to help marriages work in polygamous situations. Sister, from your perspective, what advice could you give for a brother going into it that will make things a little easier on his initial wife when he's going to take on another one?
Like I had said, and you know that and you know, hindsight is always, it is always 2020. You know, you never bring this situation up in a time where you feel like you're irritated at something that your you know, the wife that you're currently married to is doing. And you know, if and a lot of it needs to happen in situations where there is calm and where you are really fully you know, showing your love genuinely, not to say, well, I'm about to drop this on her, but like, you know, in a time where you know, the woman is feeling safe and secure, and you can bring this information to her. The other thing is that, you know, not to really go back to well, yeah, you know, sisters, like, and this is something that the brothers are saying as well, and this is something that sisters have to understand, is that there is no Muslim man that you should assume is not going to eventually take another wife. Interestingly enough, my husband is from the Gambia. So, you know, culturally, you know, that is something that was expected to happen. Okay. But, yeah, so sisters need to understand that that's never a time. But, you know, what, you know, tends to happen, the best times to do that is in the beginning, and you know, establish, like, this may be something that happens in my life. It has nothing to do, this is something that, you know, I feel, because it is something permitted, that we don't know the future, it is something that I could possibly do, or something that I want to do, you know, so as to you know, never you know, spring it on them and they have no expectations. But like I said, when you're seriously in pursuit of it, you tell them, because you know, as the brother said, if you don't tell them, and you are doing it in earnest to say, well, I don't want to, you know, stoke up her emotions, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. You know, a lot of times they feel like they're shielding their wife from something, when they could actually be doing something a lot more worse in the women's eyes. It's just to be honest and transparent. And kindness goes so far. It takes you extremely far. Especially when it comes to, you know, this type of situation.
And Barakallahu Fik for your input. We won't hold you up any longer.
Jazakumullah khair.
Oh yeah.
Wa alaikum salam.
Okay. Now, I'm gonna set the link in the chat once again for anybody else that wants to come in. But we're gonna keep moving with the discussion. And one of the things we were talking about things that men do, mistakes that men make when initiating polygyny. But let's deal with mistakes that men make while maintaining or attempting to maintain polygyny. And I know that one thing that I can honestly say from most of the polygynous situations that I've heard of, that I had a detailed understanding of what took place in them due to me becoming involved with the situation in one way or another. I always felt like the man could have made that work, could have made it work. I always felt like, you know, there's different situations that I dealt with, not many. I'm not going to make it seem like I've dealt with many, because I haven't. It's really something I prefer to stay away from. But not all cases, but a lot of cases that I have heard, it seemed like if the man had dealt better, then it would have survived. Like and I'll give you an example.
Definitely.
There was a situation where you have two sisters, a man's married to two women. They were once friends. Once the marriage came, jealousy, you know, the jealousy came, that's for so on. They're in the same circle, they have the same circle of friends as well. So now you had outside influences. I mean, when I say outside influences, meaning women who were not, that this brother was not married to. That's what I mean by outside influences. Going to one wife, or going to a wife and saying, sister so-and-so said this about you. And when they say sister so-and-so, they're talking about the other wife. And so now the one who's saying that, the one who that's being said to, now goes to her husband. I was told that she said A, B, C, D, and E about me. So now my husband is hearing this, and instead of saying, who said that? Sister so-and-so said that? Okay, no problem. And going over there and to the other home and basically asking, listen, this is what was told. This was what was told to your co-wife. Your co-wife was told by sister such and such, or, excuse me, sister so-and-so, that you said A, B, C, D, and E about her. Did you say that? Instead of coming with that approach, go straight to the other house, bust through the door. Why did you say this about your co-wife? Why did you say A, B, C, D? And the wife is sitting there like, I don't know what you're talking about. All right. And so a situation like that, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's a little bit of imbalance on the husband's part for even dealing with a situation like that.
Yeah, man. Look, wallahi, brothers, they can't let these joints stress them out like that. That's the problem. Like they just, brother, you just got, it's not that, listen, you got 2, 3, 4 women, right? That you could just go and eat food and hug and kiss and enjoy. What are you stressed? Stop taking the women.
No, but it was that situation, that situation, I think it was a little bit more, I don't think it was stress. I think that this brother had more love for one wife over the other. And he allowed that to be seen in how he treated them.
Right.
You know, so he wasn't being just in his treatment.
Oh yeah.
Because when that same thing fell on the other wife's shoe, some sisters come and whisper into the other wife, then he would go to the other wife's home and actually investigate. Did you say that? Did you know? So it was clearly, I believe, that he had more love for this other one that caused him not to be just in how he dealt with him. And see, that's the point. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is clearly telling us when فإن خفتم أن لا تعدلوا فواحدة. And if you fear you cannot be just, then one. And this is in situations like this. You got outside influences trying to ruin your marriage.
Right.
You got your heart is leaning towards another woman.
Right.
And you wear that all over your sleeves in your treatment of them.
Right.
Because one you deal with sensibly, the other one you deal with emotionally.
That's right. That's right. And this is a big.
And this particular brother is a brother, since me hearing and having to deal with that particular issue, has been in and out of polygyny since that issue. May have been married 3, 4 times thereafter. Still got the same initial wife, but they're always the ones that are incoming, come and go. So I'm clear. This is an individual that the ayat is talking about. You can't be just.
Yeah.
You need to sit down and be thankful for the one that you got. That you're clean. That you're clear. That you clearly have this type of emotional attachment for that causes you to be unjust when dealing with another woman. You need to recognize that about yourself and stop bringing sisters into situations like that. And Allah knows best. No, without a doubt.
This is why I said earlier that, you know, when you implore marriage specifically, I mean, a man shouldn't take a break from manhood any time of the day or any part of his life. But definitely, I see somebody coming in. So,
continue. They got to sync up.
All right, definitely. When you implore marriage, when you implore marriage, you definitely, absolutely cannot take a break from manhood. And that's what it sounded like the brother did. He took a break from manhood and he allowed his disposition to fail him. And he made a tremendous mistake. You can't make mistakes like that when you implore marriage. And it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job, man. You got to sleep ready. You know what I'm saying? Ain't none of that. There's none of that. You can't see no weakness. All they can see is a rajul. You better fake it till you make it. Something. You know, it ain't go wrong. There's
Make it till
nothing.
you make it, huh?
Look, listen, right now, I was mountain climbing, being thrown in the wilderness with polar bears. Nothing gonna bring the man out of you like having more than one woman sitting there demanding manhood from you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Trust me on that.
I understand. I believe you. Let's see what the brother Demetrius has for us. Assalamu alaikum, Mark. What's going on?
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله كيف حالكم؟
What do you have for us? A question, comment, concern, difference of opinion? What do you have for us this evening?
More or less just like a statement in relation to the mistakes that we make in polygyny. As alhamdulillah, I was in polygyny not too long ago. I'm divorced for about like 3 years now. But it was a very troublesome situation because, like our dear brother said, I lost touch with my manhood in that situation. So, but alhamdulillah, it was a very beneficial experience because it allowed me to really get to know myself and know my position, know the position that the women should have in polygyny. One of the things that I discovered is that the women, they have too many demands prior to and during polygyny. And we can't fault them for that because at the end of the day, a woman is a woman. But however, a lot of times we struggle with meeting these demands. And one of the reasons we struggle with meeting those demands, as I can say from personal experience, is because either we too invested in one and not the other. We too invested in one by, for an example, either when something happens a whole lot, we grow closer to one of them as the other one is pushing us away. We're growing closer to the other one. So in my experience, when that happened to me, as I grew closer to the other one, it became noticeable by the one I was married to first. And when she realized how this attraction that I was having, this love that I was having for the other one was growing so strong that it was written all over my face. And she began to make certain demands, for an example, taking a night for no reason, just because I don't want to be alone tonight. I miss you, yada, 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 things of that nature. So in order, trying to please her, make her happy, I ended up oppressing the other wife. So instead of me holding firm and saying, listen, you don't have no logical explanation of why I need to take a night. You're not sick, you're not sickly, you don't need no help. I would do things of that nature. I would take the night.
So for clarity's sake, when she said take a night, meaning she wanted you to take from your other wife's night to be with her?
Yeah. So okay. I did so because, the tears start rolling and all that, the emotional stuff. So I playing on my
she encouraged you to oppress her co-wife.
Right. And it wasn't for no other reason rather than starting some fitna. That was it. And that was the beginning of the fitna. So, I just say, man, as men, at the end of the day, if we don't know, we don't understand them rights and how, because this brought harm upon her. This brought harm upon the other wife. And it was clear to her that the other one wasn't sick, because she asked me straight up and it was written all over my face that I was a sucker for love. So at the end of the day, I fell victim in that situation. So I know there's a lot of brothers who fall in similar situations when they're dealing with polygyny, whereas though just to make the wife happy, they fall into oppressing the other one. And I think more so that was due to my ignorance of the rights, because at the time I didn't know the rights. I really didn't. So that's why I'm heavy with knowing those rights before marriage, so that you can implement those, because at times where things like this come about, then you'll be able to stand firm and know that you're not oppressing her. You're not doing anything wrong if you say, listen, I can't do that. There's no need for that. But however, this is one of the things that cause so much chaos in our community when it comes to polygyny, because the wives, as first and foremost, they're not getting along. And then they see that you're not even, especially if you're married to one for 10 years and then the other one is a 2-year, marriage. She's not her feet. She don't even feel like her feet is firmly planted in a marriage. So, and you've been with the other one for 10, 12 years. Y'all got a child together. You and the new one, y'all been married 2 years. Y'all don't have no children or nothing. So she feeling like, at the end of the day, she's going to be the scapegoat at in every situation, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't give her that reassurance that she needs, then she's going to be, she's going to feel like she's out with she's out in the trash. And this is why a lot of the women, they feel like polygyny ain't for them, because the men aren't giving them the reassurance that they need. And I can speak from my own self that I didn't give that reassurance to either one of them. First and foremost, by giving them the knowledge that they need in order to, help them deal with their hardship that they're dealing with personally. Because it's like a situation that's compounded. It's not just the feelings and emotions, but rather also it's the lack of knowledge and implementation. Because knowledge is coupled with action, ignorance is coupled with feelings and emotions. And if they don't have no knowledge of how to deal with it, they're going to go off what? The ignorance, and all the feelings and emotions are going to pour in like rain. So that's the situation I experienced. And I experienced multiple situations, but I'm not going to be too long-winded about all the things I went through. It's just dealing with polygyny. Us as men, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, we definitely need to focus on those rights, because those rights, that gives us our personal reassurance that we're not oppressing the women. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He will exact revenge upon whomever oppresses the women. And by you not knowing the rights and implementing the rights, you already fallen into oppressing the women, especially in polygyny. Now you got a whole crazy different type of situation, and I experienced that firsthand. May Allah forgive me, Ameen, and continue to increase me in knowledge and understanding the implementation of the rights, as well as my brothers. Allahumma Ameen.
Barakallahu feek.
Feekum barakallah. But that's all. That's basically what I wanted to share as far as polygyny is concerned.
Jazakumullah khair.
La best, barakallahu feek. I appreciate you sharing.
Man, as usual, man.
And jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Well, that was as it pertains to the men and mistakes that are made by men. Do the brothers have anything to add as it relates to the women and the mistakes that may commonly be made by women, and how and what can be the solution to those issues?
One thing, I think that I know the women, they're gonna be mad because they don't want us talking for them. I'm sure they don't want to talk for them, but what I can honestly, in my opinion, I believe that without a doubt, we have to take into consideration the fact that in the West, people have been, their upbringing, it's not an upbringing that embraces marriage. Sadly, they embrace zina and all of that other foolishness, but Shaitan has done he's very crafty in manipulating people into staying away from the things that yanfa, you know what I mean? And he has them, he's a master at getting people to, yaron al-haq batila wa yaron al-batil haqqa. So they look at plural marriage as something that's backwards, and they'll look at, homosexuality or, premarital sexual relationships and so on and so forth. They'll look at that stuff as, morally acceptable. But nonetheless, we do sadly have to take into consideration the fact that monogamous marriages are considered marriages with a lot of these people, not all, but a lot of them, and that plural marriages are considered something that's, looked down upon. So people come into it, people come into polygamy or polygamy. Men marry more than one wife, have to take into consideration, yes, that this is different culturally and so on and so forth. But we're Muslim, and it's an obligation upon us to accept everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. And the women have that responsibility. At the same time, I think that one of the things that will help them is if they, women have to just train themselves. And I'm sure that any woman that fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already said to herself, listen, a man marrying more than one woman is from the religion of Islam, and I have to accept it as a concept, even though I struggle with it. I don't think that any woman that believes in Allah and his revelation and the last day is going to, not at some point in her life come to that realization. How she implements that is an entirely different thing. One of the things the women have to understand is that the more you allow your emotions to get out of control, the harder it is for your husband to be honest and open with you about certain things. And that doesn't give the man, a right to lie and to sneak. But I can honestly tell the sisters that, the easier, and again, you can be emotional, but you have to try to keep your emotions from allowing you to become irrational. You know what I mean? When a man feels threatened because the brothers, we love our wives, we love our children, we love our homes, and we love the peace that we find inside of our homes. When that peace is compromised and we're worried that peace is going to get compromised, we get uncomfortable. So if a man is going to get another wife, or he's going to get a third wife or a fourth wife, whatever it is, if a man is going to get another wife, and he wants to, he understands, he may respect and love and appreciate his wife to such an extent that, not that she necessarily has to be a part of it. Like, hey, could you go find a wife for me? No, not like that. But just like, listen, I'm thinking about marrying sister so-and-so, I think she's good. The women, if you want a husband that's going to be open and able to sit down and have a dialogue and be easy and be relaxed and, just be transparent with you, you have to learn how to keep your emotions controlled just enough that you don't freak them out. And I think that women, that's one of the reasons why we have a lot of brothers either becoming overbearing and being extra. I'm going to do this. I don't care what you say, blah, 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 having this, tyrannical kind of personality, or becoming sneaky. Now, again, I'm not saying that's an excuse for the brothers to behave like that. I'm just saying that I believe that it will help the narrative if women could, kind of just learn how. I don't believe that it's impossible for a woman to learn how to, even if she doesn't gain mastery over her emotions, she can keep them from getting ridiculous. You know what I mean? Because that's one of the things that's causing a big problem. The other thing is, women, you really have to retrain yourself and stop looking at this woman as an op. You know what I mean? She's not necessarily op. She's not someone coming in necessarily to replace you. We've seen multiple cases, throughout our marital counseling career and vicarious experiences that we had and personal experiences that we had within our families. We've seen women who actually have verbalized and, throughout the entire initial process, nothing in their character contradicted that which they verbalized and in terms of their desire to just be part of the family. You know what I mean? And sometimes the woman who's the initial wife, who's already married to the brother, her behavior can trigger, because everybody has their breaking point. Women have to be mindful of the fact that, listen, yes, you're the initial wife, and yes, you built this, and you and your husband may have gone through all of these tremendous things, and all those things have to be, validated and respected and honored. But none of that gives you you should never feel a sense of entitlement to such an extent that something in the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has to now be compromised. And anytime you feel like that, just reflect and think about your mothers, radiyallahu anhunna. They weren't that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in spite of his love for Aisha, in spite of all the sacrifices they made for him and with him along his side, that didn't stop him from implementing their sunnah of marrying more than one woman. So, if your husband takes on another wife, women have to be mindful that, listen, yes, we have this tremendous life that we may have built, or these sacrifices we may have made, or he has the shortcomings he has, and we have ups and downs. Maybe you don't think it's the best timing. And if you want to vocalize those things or verbalize those things, you can, no problem. But you can't ever, you will be doing yourself an injustice to put this woman in the category of an op or somebody that's coming to harm you or somebody that's coming to cause a disturbance in your life or a home wrecker or any of these other kind of things. And then you go out and talk to these other people. And the saddest thing, and I don't mean to be long-winded, but one of the saddest things that women do, along with their looking at this woman that may very well have good intentions and may display good character, if are them not accepting that turns into a problem, because now you bring out a bad side of that woman. Even within your jealousy, you have to be mindful of the fact that that's a human being too. And if you push her, she's going to start to behave. But what she's coming in trying to be a good girl, and now you pushed her. And the same can be said about the woman coming in. Should understand that the other wife is going to be jealous, and that if you're not patient and you don't come in saying that, listen, he's been married to her for a while, she's really emotionally attached. She may flip out. I got to be the one that's going to take a lot of you may have to take the bigger blow. I mean, in my opinion, I think that sometimes when a man marries a woman, and the wife, the new wife that's coming in, she starts to see certain things from his initial wife. If she really wants this thing to work, if she's wise, she should expect that. She shouldn't expect to be disrespected, and she shouldn't expect for that woman to allow her Islamic character to become compromised such that she becomes extremely disrespectful. But if she, let's say, for example, doesn't really want to talk to her or isn't as warm, and she picks up some coldness and some standoff, like she starts to act like she's kind of standoffish, inshallah, that will go away. Sometimes these women just need that healing period. And if the wife coming in can be patient and wise enough, not that she's going to be giving up rights and, okay, you don't got to take care of me for now and all of that kind of foolishness. None of that. But if the woman is a woman of khayr and a woman of piety, we're not talking about these women that don't wear hijab. You wear hijab, the wife, you shouldn't even marry. Look, if your husband, sisters, let me tell y'all this. If the man you want to marry, you see his wife running around with jeans on and her feet out and a little scarf wrapped around her head, and you want to marry him, any man that'll let his wife go out the house like that is not worth marrying. You don't need to be in his house. Okay, that's my opinion. I'm not saying he's a horrible brother. I'm not saying he's a kafir. I'm not saying him or none of that extreme stuff. I'm saying if you want good for yourself, and you're a woman of the Sunnah, you're a woman of Salafiyya, a woman of taqwa, iman, and ta'atillah, and you see that this man's wife, who he's been married to for years and he has children, is not practicing Islam, you're already setting yourself up for failure anyway. Because any woman that can just comfortably disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like that, what makes you think that she's going to treat you respectfully? All right. So, that's one of the biggest mistakes in that. One of the last thing I can probably think of right now is, and I believe somebody said it during the course of this platform, this discussion right here today. Those outside influences, those women you talking to, listen, there's some girls, most of the people don't understand Islam properly. We already know that already. The majority of people that we deal with don't understand Islam properly. There are people that are claiming Salafiyya, and they don't even know what Salafiyya is. They don't understand Tawheed, they don't understand the Sunnah, they don't know the hukum as it relates to opening your mouth and speaking without knowledge. And everybody feels like they can give you advice. People think they can give you advice and they're entitled to give you advice because they love you or because, you're crying or because you need a shoulder to cry on. Listen, you go call up this girl who is a nut and doesn't know what she's talking about, doesn't understand Islam properly. She doesn't understand the Quran, the Sunnah. She sits around and watch whatever Desperate Housewives of Atlanta or whatever these shows are, on Instagram all day, looking at the kuffar women, all of these fake, weird motivational quotes from the kafirat and all of these crazy people. That's her mentality. Oh, you're a narcissist. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're that. All of that weird stuff they're coming up with. You call her and now she's on the other end. Yeah, you need to get out of that toxic situation and this blah, 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 and toxic masculinity and blah, blah, blah. The next thing you know, guess what's going to happen? She's going to mess you up, right? She's going to mess you up. Oh, he got married on, he's going to get married on you. That's what they say. That's the phrase they say. They say he's going to get married on you. Like he creeping, like he doing something dirty. They treat it like it's almost like he creeping and he's making zina, right? And she called these friends that not salafiyat, they're strong upon the sunnah, they have some ilm and some khibra and some tarbiyah. No, she calls somebody else who's gonna go ahead and tell us some foolishness to help, whatever toxic poison shaitan is trying to plant in her to cause fitna in the household. They're gonna feed that. So now what happens is these women wind up, listen, I've seen this a million times. They call this one, call that one. They give them this bad advice. The girl and her husband winds up having problems. He winds up divorcing her, the first wife, the initial wife. He divorces her. And now she outside sitting around. What's she gonna do now? Go find a brother who's gonna promise her that he's never gonna get another wife, or she's gonna go find another brother who she likes, who's masculine, who's a man, and who may very well wind up taking on another wife. She's going to wind up and possibly may wind up in the same situation anyway. The number one rule is to just not get a divorce. You do not break up your family, no matter what. The only time a man or a woman should separate, in my opinion, especially in this day and age, and we have proof from the Quran and Sunnah to support this, is if you fear that your religion is going to be compromised. And I mean really compromised. Not sisters because, I'm going to be so upset that it's hard for me to fast on Ramadan because I'm stressed out. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the person, who they are, and what they're bringing to the table is going to cause you some religious compromise to the point that you feel like your iman may decrease and stay low because of it. Not because you're sad or because you're upset, but because this person's character, their personality, who they are as a Muslim, is changing so much that you can't feel comfortable in this marriage anymore. Other than that, all of that arguing, that yelling and cursing and stuff people do when they're going through this plural marriage stress, just ride that out. The brothers do not divorce your wife. I don't care what she do. I don't care how mad she get. I don't care what she breaks. I don't care how much yelling she does. I don't care about none of that. She can embarrass you in the supermarket, and all the millions of stories I've heard. Do not. You know this woman fears Allah. You know she upon ta'atillah, and you honestly believe that she just lost her mind right now because of her stress. Just don't pay no attention, man. When you have the opportunity to advise her, but don't give up. Number one thing we do to ruin our marriages is we give up, when we can't give up.
Barakallahu fiqh, man. I think that was some really golden statements that should be reflected on and taken into heavy consideration. But now we've hit the 2 hour and 30-minute mark, and I want to close it out, inshallah. This issue of polygyny is a very, very detailed and expansive issue and discussion to deal with. And without a doubt, it's just something that'll take many sittings. But hopefully, with programs of this nature, the brothers and sisters can hear varying perspectives and benefit, inshallah, to benefit in a way that brings better results to the brothers and sisters in our community. Again, for the listening audience, I advise the brothers and sisters to subscribe to the channel for obvious reasons. Subscribe to the channel, that way you stay updated on all the things that are taking place on this channel. We have another episode, for lack of better expressions, of extracted benefits coming up. Inshallah, definitely want to kick back up the urban du'a dialogue as well. And of course, we have more heavyweight dialogue dealing with not only issues pertaining to marriage, but other issues as well. We need to get back to, because we never finished our discussion on the imam and the politics of the masjid, the imam, the admin, and the attendees. And we definitely want to do something on increasing in economic economic growth, increasing our awareness of business and economics and things of that nature. But as for now, I'll leave it there. And with that, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. To the listening audience, assalamu